welcome to the joy of editing. Today we're going to pick up where we left off in part 1 and recut R2 and Threepio's journey to the Lars Homestead. The main thing I want to teach y'all today is how a sequence's position within the larger story affects the way an editor shapes it. Originally, this sequence was the beginning of the first Star Wars film, but now it's the beginning of the 4th episode, and this change in narrative position will have a massive impact on the way we recut it. The 1977 cut of Episode 4 is about as perfect as a film can get. The tension and mystery of the droid's journey is marvelously constructed, and if this is the first time we ever see Tatooine, it makes complete sense to do a ton of world building. But an audience who just finished watching Episode 3, now seeing Tatooine for the 4th time, would probably have very different questions on their mind. To illustrate what I'm saying, let's pretend we're watching the beginning of Star Wars in 1977. And then pretend we're watching it in 2008 as a sequel to Revenge of the Sith. Haha, the gold robot kicked him. Wait, is that a dragon skeleton? Are there going to be dragons in this movie? Wait, are those little monks? No way, a trapezoid tank. This is so cool. Tatooine? Again. Does George have any new ideas? Why is Threepio being such a jerk? Okay, that's a lot of setup for the little weirdos who gave Anakin directions. We're not going to see Darth Vader again for like another hour, are we? Oh, look, here we are again. Y'all remember when Star Wars was this? Now we're just sitting around, cleaning droids and drinking blue milk. Okay, that was actually pretty good on the whole, but I mean, it's no Attack of the Clones. With that blasphemy out of the way, let's jump into the recut. The main thing I want to do is adjust the pacing of the droid's journey to the homestead so that it flows better with what we just saw in Episode 3. In order to do that, we're going to rework the characters and the world building. Let's start with the characters. Threepio is a massive jerk in the original cut, and this characterization doesn't really jive with how he's portrayed in the prequels, where he and R2 are buddies, which leads me to the question, what if our droids stuck together? This change is actually super easy to make. We just have to change this line from
"A transport! I'm saved!"
to
"A transport! We're saved!"
and recomposite one shot. For that change, we got to bring George back in to help us with some digital magic. Basically, all we need to do to sell this rework sequence is add R2 into this wide shot. If I slap on a new color grade, the droid's arrival on Tatooine looks something like this.
How did we get into this mess? I really don't know how. What a desolate place this is. Where do you think you're going? Well, I'm not going that way. It's much too rocky. This way is much easier. What makes you think there are settlements over there? Don't get technical with me. What mission? What are you talking about? Wait, what's that? A transport! We're saved! Over here! Hey! Hey! Help! Please help!
Wait a minute, Mr. Editor. That Death Star scene doesn't go there. It goes after the scene in Ben's house. You've got it all mixed up. Now that we've adjusted Threepio's character, it's time to address the world building. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the scene board to collect our bearings on how our sequence is being reshaped. Here's the original scene flow. R2 and Threepio exit the pod. Threepio is captured by the Jawas. R2 is captured by the Jawas. The Sandcrawler. Stormtroopers inspect the pod. the sandcrawler again. The droids arrive at the homestead. By reworking the sequence so the droids are captured together, we've managed to cut 3 subsequences. But we've also created a problem. If we cut straight from the droids hailing the sandcrawler to the stormtroopers inspecting the pod, Tatooine will feel way too small, and the pacing will be way too fast. So we need to insert a scene in between the droids hailing the sandcrawler and the stormtroopers searching the pod, which, spoiler alert, is going to be the Death Star conference room scene. There are 2 reasons why this cut works. The first has to do with visual symmetry and momentum. The shot that transitions us from the opening sequence to Tatooine shows Darth Vader's Star Destroyer pulling out of orbit, and the shot that transitions us from Tatooine to the conference room shows the Devastator arriving at the Death Star. This makes complete sense given the fact that Vader thinks Princess Leia sent the plans to Tatooine in an empty pod. So all the stormtroopers have to do is find the pod, and they find the plans. This simple oversight has major implications and plays into Episode 4's running theme of misplaced Imperial arrogance, which Tarkin displays in his final line in the conference room scene.
"We will then crush the rebellion with one swift stroke."
A line that, to my mind, is much funnier if it immediately cuts to a squad of confused stormtroopers not finding the plans. The second reason that this cut works is because it refocuses the world building. If we jump back to the conversation that Vader has with the officers on the blockade runner, there are several excellent references to the Senate which we know well from the prequels. If we cut to the conference room scene soon after this conversation, it will feel like a natural extension of the scene, because Tarkin and the officers are also referencing the Imperial Senate and Palpatine. Ironically, the reason I know that this world-building restructure works is because it employs the exact same editing technique that Marcia Lucas and her team used to position the conference room scene in the original cut. In 1977, the audience didn't know that the Force was real, so when Obi-Wan explains the Force to a credulous Luke, the audience needed a world-building scene that showed the Force in action, so they'd take Old Ben seriously for the rest of the film. But if Episode 4 was released after the prequels, the audience would already know all about the Force, so the questions on that audience's mind would probably center more on Palpatine and the Senate. Bottom line, hopefully you can see how an editor has to think through how the viewer is experiencing a film in order to properly execute a cut. Enjoy the edit, and I'll see y'all next time.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish.
This bickering is pointless. Now, Lord Vader will provide us with the location of the rebel fortress by the time this station is operational. We will then crush the rebellion with one swift stroke.
Someone was in the pod. The tracks go off in this direction. Look, sir, droids.
We stopped. Wake up. Wake up! Do you think they'll melt us down? Don't shoot, don't shoot. Will this never end?
All right, fine. Let's go.
Luke, tell your uncle if he gets a translator, be sure it speaks Bachi.
Doesn't look like we have much of a choice, but I'll remind him.
push on us.